Chapter 7, Part 8, Places of Worship and their general characteristics. So there's some different ways that religions, people worship. Sometimes it's to shelter a congregation, house a sacred object, incorporate an element of nature in animism, in particular, incorporate symbolic geometry, and be sites for sacred ceremonies and pilgrimages. This particular ziggurat at Ur, it was not a building that you walked into. This is solid earth here, and then stone was built up around it. So this processional staircase that goes up here, you would have perhaps a religious object at the top. We don't really know. It's very, very old. It's before the pyramids were built. It's partially reconstructed, but there wasn't a place to go inside of it, if that makes sense. The next thing we're going to look at is 7.23, the Ark of the Covenant and Sanctuary Implements. Now, this is a depiction of the tabernacle, the place that held the Ark of the Covenant. This is a mosaic piece, and this is in Jerusalem. But what is thought at this time, and I watched a documentary on this, a legitimate one, I believe, that the Ark of the Covenant now belongs in a place, in a monastery in Ethiopia. No one knows that for sure, and if you recall the Raiders of the Lost Ark, which is now quite an old movie, that was what he was looking for, and it was supposed to hold sacred powers. But no one knows for sure, and it hasn't been seen in a very long time. But that is, this particular mosaic is depicting the building where it was held, last seen. That's our clue. But it's very important in the Jewish religion. Moses, again, this is involving Moses carrying the Ten Commandments, and they were put inside of this box, which becomes the Ark of the Covenant. Okay, so our ziggurat at Ur, it's replicating a mountain. Now, mountains are sacred places in many religions, and they're the meeting places between heaven and earth. But we also look at sacred groves and some other things. I'm not going to get too into these. We'll just go through. So this is erected by the Sumerians of Ur to honor their special deity. And ziggurat means mountain or pinnacle, and it's surrounded by flat land. This is a very flat area, okay? And we are in Iraq. You have to remember, Iran and Iraq are two of the foundations of Western culture. We don't think of them as very Western at this point in time, but they influenced a lot of the culture and language and many things that we still carry on with traditions today. So this is a bunch of rubble, right? And then it's covered with brick. This is a very different piece, unusual to the Shinto religion. It's rebuilt every 20 years. Now, what that means is the ritual taking of the wood from the forest is carefully thought out. Many prayers are said as the trees are cut, and then they carefully construct this out of new trees every 20 years. I don't know what happens to the old wood. I think that comes to mind. I imagine, somebody who has strong religious ties perhaps gets the wood from the previous structure. At any rate, there'd be a lot of praying going on during the building, and that's really true. I kind of want to backtrack through all of this chapter. When these objects are made, a lot of times the artist, the artisan, the person making it, including buildings, is in a state of meditation or prayer and has been purified in some way so that their hands make holy work, if that makes sense. And with the Shinto, with its new building, the boards are taken from the same tree. They're put together. They're near each other, so that tree is still whole in a kind of a way. Okay, so Shinto religion isn't quite animistic, or they claim not to be anymore, but it teaches that forests and enormous stones and sacred dwellings of the gods of nature called the kami. Okay, they are sacred places and things. They're gods that dwell in them. So in order for the kami to come into this shrine, they have a mirror, so the spirit will find its way into this wooden piece. No nails, it's all wood, and so it recognizes, the kami recognizes it as a tree, and so it's able to commune with humans in a human built structure, if that makes sense, bringing down the gods, or bringing the gods into an interior space. Using geometry symbolically, you see this a lot through religious objects and architecture, especially with the Greeks, but we're looking here with Stonehenge. These are Neolithic people from 4,000 years ago in England. We don't know much about Druid culture, and we don't know a lot about this particular structure, which is Stonehenge, other than it lines up at certain times of the year, like the summer solstice, winter solstice, where the sun will come right through these rocks. So geometry symbolizes divinity, totality, perfection, and timelessness. And it's an astronomical device. And also it, marks the solstice. And that is helpful for an agrarian, which means planting, which means farming, civilization. If you don't know when the times of year are, when the seasons are changing, you don't know when to plant your crop.